How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Tag Team, the Pokemon Trading Card Game's premier podcasting duo. My name is Riley Hulbert, joined, as always, by my good friend, Mr. JW Kriewall. JW, how's it going today?
Hey, pretty good, Riley. I wish I had something insightful to say, but it's just been another week in beautiful New Jersey, and I'm hanging in there. How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, it's been kind of cool around here. I feel like since my last project wrapped up, I'm kind of like moving between things a little bit, so I've had some time to kind of like recenter and like get all prepared to like do the next project really well. I've had just like some good times at home lately. I just got my my suit picked out for the wedding.
Whoa,
which is great.
That's awesome.
And we just did that week. This weekend we went to a bridal expo, which I might have mentioned a couple weeks ago, and then we booked an appointment through that with like a bridal salon that does like suits and stuff as well. And they were doing a deal as well for like November, December, and I don't know, we just found something we really liked and it was on sale and I was like, perfect, this is great. And I'm just very decisive about that kind of stuff. If I if I like it, I'm just like, I don't need to see like 5 other stores. Let's just do this,
Yeah.
I went to a League Cup, which was interesting. I could talk about that, but it's a brief story. It's a very short story. I was like, oh man, I would love to get some more reps in. I've been talking on the cast about trying to practice more and be ready for Toronto. So I'm like, I'm gonna go to this League Cup. It's gonna be awesome. And I played 5 total turns at that League Cup, JW, across 2 rounds.
Gosh, dude.
5 of which were in round 1.
That's so cringe.
So, it is what it is. I think I kind of minimalist play in round 1 where my opponent was playing like the Charizard Noctowl deck, and they also let me know they're a listener of the cast. So shout out to you and congrats on the win. They fan wrote them and get like a double hoot and a Pidgey or something turn 1, and I have an opener that lets me get into turn 1 Frillish. So I'm like, cool, like I'm just gonna Iono them because they clearly have Noctowls in their hands.
Yeah.
And like body them with item lock. I did have a Lily in my hand, but I opted to Iono, like knowing that they would have had Noctowls. And I really just should have played the Lily.
Because they can't threaten the.
I know, yeah. There's no serious threat on board the following turn, regardless. So I should have just Lilied, and I knew that like right away. As soon as I Ultra Balled away the Lily, I was like, I should have Ultra Balled the Iono instead.
Yeah. But it's still like it's not that bad, but.
Yeah. I think it would have been fine so long as I like drew a second supporter, but like I basically didn't do anything the rest of the game while they very slowly set up under item lock. So I bought those like 3 or 4 turns with the Frillish, and then it was lights. So it is what it is.
Yeah,
it was fine. I personally blame myself for that game.
Well, we don't have the analytics on it. That's always something that I aspire for. Of like, could we have an objective, measure or at least
I think in that case it just is objectively right to do the Lily, because you don't actually, because A, they're likely to draw the Dawn anyway. Off the Iono.
Sure.
And B, because he didn't have any like Charmanders or Charmeleons or anything, he wasn't threatening for like several more turns.
Yeah, 2 more turns. Okay. Well, 3 more turns, really. Yeah.
I mean, you could power up a Terrapagos in 2, or you could like swing with Fanrotom. So it's like, I think that was entirely on me. And I still might have lost that game. I mean, it's not like a good matchup necessarily, but like I thought that was a misplay. And so I was a little frustrated. And then I took a massive dump in the restroom because my tummy was really not happy with me. And then I go into round 2, and I'm literally at the bottom table with this League Cup, literally at the bottom table. And my opponent opens Squawk, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like this is gonna be like Sarah Ledge or something.
Yeah. Maybe.
And then immediately he like, all in his opening hand, like before he squawks, he's like Brute Bonnet, Ancient Capsule, Perilous Jungle. I'm like, oh my god. And he plays for a little while. I think maybe he doesn't realize that he's taking the KO. But then he just does, and I don't get to play the games. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, that's. And so I drop like literally like a minute into round 2, and the judge is like,
dude.
the judge is trying to be like nice, like, oh my gosh, like, is everything okay? I guess something right. And I was like, no, I just got like poison docked, and I'm gonna go home now. So, I was at that
really trying to empathize.
that store.
Yeah.
I paid $20 to be at that store for 40 minutes.
Well, I mean, I feel like there are optimal cup and challenge records, right? Obviously, like the best would be to go undefeated.
No, I know what you're about, and it is better to go 0-2 than like 3-2.
Yes, exactly, right? It's
100%.
tough to like spend.
I mean, it was chill. Like I came home and then I had a good afternoon.
Yeah. So I had a cup too this weekend, and we got 7 players.
Before you go into cup story, I have one other triumph this weekend that I want to share.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The one other thing is my fiance Jill asked me to make pretzels, and I made like the best, like super legit buttery pretzels, and they were so freaking good. They like might have been the best like bready product that I think I've ever made. They're so
well. They'll never be better than New York pretzels. And that's because of
you haven't had them.
Well, but that's no. It's literally because of the mineral composition of the water. I was learning that from a podcast that I was.
People say that, but then I actually saw a video on that recently about the pizzas, and like the guy was saying like it was fake news because he like took some water and like put it in a checked bag and like brought it home.
No, well, okay, people do that, right? They do ship it across the country.
Well, he just did it as an experiment. Like he like got some tap water from New York, and then got his own tap water and like compared them. And he was like, "This isn't actually."
So
like,
he did like one experiment.
I mean, yeah.
So
of course,
I mean,
like,
I don't know if that holds.
I'm inclined to believe that is like
you're inclined to believe the person. Legend, you're inclined to believe the person that you agree with.
No, just like, that. Like that kind of logic to me, like kind of reads urban legend, you know?
Yeah. Well, but okay. Yes and no. Like it is in this podcast episode I was listening to, they were basically saying that water is a rock smoothie, is what they said, because you have
I get what you're saying.
You know, you have all the minerals in the water, right? And so minerals from certain areas are different. You know, just again, depending on the composition of the mountain that they're coming from or whatever.
I mean, you can tell that just when, like, you know, some places tap water tastes good or bad. You know?
Exactly. Well, and then they went on to say that it actually does affect gluten development and dough, I don't know, aeration and all these various factors that would go into making a bread product. So
interesting.
The way that they put it, I'm
who's
like,
to dispute a podcast, JW?
So true.
I think everything said on a podcast is verifiably true.
Yeah, without a doubt, definitely, and definitely here.
Anyway, you can share your cup story, but the pretzels were super good. They were more of like an Auntie Anne style though, with like super buttery and yummy. And
did you just cut them into little squares? Or
no, we did full pretzels. They were kind of small. They weren't like giant jumbo pretzels, but they were like pretzel shaped, not nuggets.
Okay.
Although I'm tempted to do the nuggets because I really do like the Auntie Anne's nuggets.
Well, and the nuggets are that's really simple, right? Because you can fit so much more on a plate, right? You don't have the dead space of the pockets in a pretzel. I'm just saying it's more
optimization
efficient, right? It's more,
problem of this leads you to nugget.
Exactly.
Sure. It actually leads to one gigantic block.
No, you got to have the crisp, right? The edges are important.
That's true.
To a
That's
pretzel.
true.
But
yeah, so actually cuboidal would be
yes,
optimal.
cubed.
So you can stack them on top.
Right, like a square watermelon.
Yes. Much to think about.
Yeah, so I had a cup this weekend as well. I finished. Well, let's see. I don't know if I want to maybe give that away. First round, I played a Charizard deck. Second round, it was a 7-player tournament. We waited like an extra 10 minutes. I think the reason that we had less than 8 players, well, there's 2 reasons. I asked one of the locals. I'm like, hey, why is this cup, like this low? Because we're in New Jersey. Like we could pull players from, New Jersey,
the
New
great
York.
state of New Jersey.
Well, because I went to a challenge the week before. It had 37 players. Okay. So
That is crazy.
I'm just, and I've been to multiple 30 plus.
Was there like
challenges.
competing cups that weekend?
There was another cup, and and so, but still, like if I'm a competitive player and I'm looking for points, I would go to the smaller cup, just like, period, right? Because it's over faster. There's, less, I don't know, variance, I guess, that can affect it. As long as it's
arguably there's more variance though, because there's less rounds.
Oh, okay. Anyway, as long as it's an 8-player cup where you have a top 4, I'm going to that tournament every single time versus a larger event. So anyway, I was like pretty stoked about it because I'm like, okay, sweet. We're not going to do a top cut. It's going to be 3 rounds. I'll just go 3-0, get my play mat, and then I have literally the rest of the day. Like I'll get home before the girls wake up from nap. So I'll have literally the rest of the day to, make my food and get prepped for the week and everything. And so round 1, I win against a Charizard deck. Round 2, I play a Hops Zacian deck. And he just like, this is his first tournament ever. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be an easy win. I'm like prepping for it. I'm like, man, this 2-0 heading into the last round. That's cool. And then he goes second, and he gets like the turn 1 knockout on my Monkey Dory in the active because he plays the tool, and then he gets the Snorlax, and he gets the Postwick. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, this is going to be a slug.
It's kind of getting cooked.
Yep. And then, so I tried to do like the Monkey Dory strategy to buy some time on his active while I'm like setting up. Because I like miss Gardevoir a few turns, and I'm like really just like on the back foot pretty much the whole time because he's just mowing down my guys. And then it just seems like every time there's he has a switch in his hand or the prime catcher. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, like, I can't believe this is how it's going to end. And yeah, anyway, he pulls off like the huge combo at the end with a Cramorant to knock out a 2-prizer on my bench. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened. So I'm 1-1 heading to the last round. And then I play a senior. I'm like, okay, great. this is like, this is just a cup from, a horrible cup experience. Played Sarah Ledge and ended up winning. And then they announced the final standings and I got second. So somehow the guy that I lost to got first, I got second. Somehow I was able to salvage, which is, because it's a cutoff, right? Because they, in a 7-player cup, it's only points for the top 2. So I salvage a second place.
I feel like you don't deserve 40 CP for that. I'm sorry.
No, I don't. But on the other hand, I don't think I would have deserved 50 CP for winning. Right? It's like,
no, like
I don't think I would have.
Like you got to get 25. You got to get half off.
I don't think I deserved points. Either way, that was either way that was falling. But yeah, pretty wild.
No, I agree. 50 points for finishing 3-0 at a 7-person tournament doesn't feel quite right to me. I don't know. No. It's fine. It is what it is. But
no, it's pretty wild though. That's the second time. Ironically, the first time was also earlier this season that I've played in a cup that hasn't had enough players for a top cut. So
I've never experienced that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. I don't love it, but I do like the efficiency, right? Because I find, I just find generally that, for some reason, I don't get it. Maybe it's like the judges don't have places to be, or they don't have families or anything. I don't know. That maybe sounded. That sounded worse than I meant it to sound, but it's like the kind of lackadaisical approach it feels like sometimes to getting cups rolling is frustrating for me personally, because I'm like, okay, let's like abide by the time rules. If we're going to start at 11, let's like start the tournament at 11. Let's make sure that we hold on to the +5 or +10 or whatever at the end of every round. Like, let's make sure that we get our tournament rounds input and start the next round right on time. So I'm really about speed. So anytime that I go to these massive tournaments like that 37-player challenge, Like we were getting out of there. That was a 6-hour tournament. And it's just like, oh my gosh, for a freaking challenge. This cup over in what, 2 hours, before I even
Probably
had to go
2
back
hours, yeah.
before I had to go back and pay the parking meter. So I
before the parking meter's crazy.
so yeah, pretty interesting times.
Yeah, well, that's fun. I'm looking at maybe going to another local tournament this week. I've not been big on the locals, but I am trying to get some reps in.
Yeah, dude. We got Toronto,
especially in person physically. I went in like so ready to be like try hard too. Like I brought my notepad and was like, I'm gonna actually prize check.
Yeah.
At least for like Pokemon and significant trainers and energy counts. Like I won't count every single copy of all my supporters necessarily. I'll make sure that they're there at all.
Right.
But definitely I count every single Pokemon. I count all my energy, rare candies,
of course,
like that.
Yep. Yeah. Well, hopefully you get some more chances. I don't know what in-person tournaments I'll be able to go to between now and Toronto. Hopefully another cup, right? Because this is kind of the down period.
Yeah, I mean, there's a cup and 2 challenges next Saturday. I kind of wish they spread them out a little more. The stores are like all compete. I noticed this like semi-regularly, like all the stores trying to like have a tournament at once around here. I don't they're just not collaborating or what, but like I feel like I've seen very frequently like sanctioned tournaments on the same day, like at the same time, even at multiple different stores around here.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Like I feel like that doesn't help anybody, but
yeah, unless they really just have beef. But you got to think that. Well, and they might. Well, yeah, and they're probably competing for, judge resources.
But even if you have beef, alternate perspective. Even if you have beef, right? Like if I run a store, but I hate your store down the street. Wouldn't I still want to run it on a different day so that way I could coax your core player base over to my store and they could see how much better it is? Because if we're both on the same day, your core player base is going to go to your store.
Right.
But if they're on different days, they'll come to my store and then they'll know to shop at my store because it's better than your store.
Then they'll compare. Yeah, that's interesting. Or maybe they know that their store is not as good as the other store, and so they don't want. They don't want to, let their core player base go to another store or incentivize the core player base to go to another store.
So you're saying I don't want to risk my core base going to your store.
Yeah, because I know my store.
So I got to put on the same day, so that way, like they stay kind of in the confines of my ecosystem. I actually think all the stores around here are quite good, to be honest. Like they're nice. They're nice, like actual stores. I haven't gone to many of the tournaments in the last couple of years, but I like all the storefronts quite a lot. Yeah, their single selection isn't great, but like I feel like most local game stores, Pokemon single selection isn't great usually.
Yeah.
So like I'm willing to take that. They're great for like board games and stuff though. Like
dude,
just fun stores, and they have good like play spaces and everything. So I enjoy like the actual storefronts around me. I mean, obviously I would improve the single Pokemon selection, but like. It's just a hard business, to be in.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and exclusively, right? Exclusively Pokemon singles. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's what it is. But we'll see. I might go to a challenge. I might go to a cup. We'll kind of see the vibes.
Yeah. Locals. I find locals to be extremely fun.
I think I don't really know any of these people quite yet. So that's like something I think it's more fun when you like know the community more. Like I really liked playing locals like around Columbus when I lived in Ohio because like I knew all those guys really well, and it was like pretty fun. And like even if I wasn't doing hot, like I could see my guys and like watch them play and like or like they would and we could chat between rounds. Whereas now I feel like I'm a little bit of a loner vibes.
Yeah, I mean me too, right? Ironically, I think some of it has to do with especially at like a local level. The churn is a bit higher. Certainly there are some players that I'm
New Jersey
more
retention
with.
rate.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just generally younger, right?
Not
that I'm like the oldest person there by any means.
Yeah, I mean I played like a 17-year-old in my last tournament in the second round. So
yeah, so I kind of can relate to that, right? Kind of feeling. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like
out of place,
a
maybe?
lot of Pokemon's core base though is like in their 20s and 30s these days.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like there is a good amount of younger folks, but like I look around the room at my cups, I see a lot of people like looking maybe mid-20s. I like my round one opponent, I think was in his 30s. I mean, I don't want to say how old he was, but like like he felt like a age peer, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm freaking 30 years old, isn't that? That's nuts,
dude.
Yikes.
Slow down.
It's only downhill from here.
Slow down, time. Father Time is undefeated. That's what they say. That's what I told Andrew when he had the crick in his neck last week.
Yeah, Jill has had some shoulder pain. I think because she slept funny the other day, and
sheesh.
That's all it takes, man. That's all it takes. Our bodies are so fragile.
One wrong move.
One wrong move, and you're in the slammer for a week.
So true. So true. Well, all right. Should we get to it? We both played Gardevoir at our cups. Did you play the jelly variant or?
I played jelly.
Yeah, you played jelly. I played the straight version with Fluttermane and a single Frillish. So this was essentially my version was essentially Makani Trans list from Milwaukee and Vegas. I just smushed in a Mega Diancie because I do really think, like right now my position on Mega Diancie in Gardevoir is that it's an auto include. Like I think it needs to be in the deck. I think that combo of Gardevoir and Diancie is just too strong right now, because you can preload it pretty easily. It's just an insane card if you're playing Turo as well, right? Because you could tank a hit and then scoop that right back up, and there's no, real there's no difference in the look of your board when you do that, right? Because before you maybe had like the Gardevoir as your big tanky attacker. Well, if you Turo that up, then obviously you have to reset the Gardevoir in play. But Mega Diancie preload, super good, takes a lot of hits, gives you another weakness to work off of, so now you're not so susceptible to an early Charizard or an early Grimmsnarl or Zoroark or something like that. You have more play into those decks. So I just see Diancie as being pretty much not cuttable. Like it's just pairs with Gardevoir, right? To the extent that we say, Screamtail is a Gardevoir partner. Screamtail has been pretty much consistently paired with Gardevoir. At least for the last year, right? Year plus. I see Diancie in much the same way. I know, Riley, obviously you played the jelly variant. But we're kind of honing in on Gardevoir as being our play for Toronto. We have that coming up in a month right now.
Yeah, I mean, Gardevoir, I have played exclusively Gardevoir online since Milwaukee. So coming up on like 2 months of just playing Gardevoir. I finished the battle pass just playing Gardevoir for Phantasmal Flames. So I've been like, I've been in it. I've been seriously grinding the Gardevoir stuff. And I've played a lot of, I've played a lot of different variants and even just like tweaks kind of within the variants too. Modifying like things here and there to try and get the vibe. I think I can understand like the perspective, I think, of folks who say that maybe Diancie isn't required. Although I wouldn't necessarily agree with it myself. Like I feel like the card is so good and it feels strong. Like when you're playing it, you can kind of like tell that it's a really strong inclusion, particularly in certain matchups, like where it really just lays it on. Diancie's also extremely clutch. If you manage to get a couple monkeys up versus like a dark type attacker, like a Charizard or a Grimmsnarl,
it's curtains.
You're just like 2 monkeys away from shutting them out of the game, pretty much. Zoroark especially. Like I actually feel like the Zoroark matchup's potentially even favorable, and I know that's like such a Guardy thing to say, but I really do feel like the Zoroark matchup feels favorable to me when you're playing Diancie.
Yeah, you're a true Guardy head when there's no unfavorable
when you start saying Zoroark's favorable, but actually though, like with the Diancie, like if you're able to get 2 Monkey Dories online,
Yeah.
and a Gardevoir, like you just win, right?
Yeah.
Because you can load like 6. You can load like 6 energy onto the Diancie, and just have your monkeys down. And like, what do? They gust a monkey, you just rebench a monkey. If they gust a Guardy,
well,
then
if they're taking a 1
you already
prizer
used
and
the
they're not addressing the 2 prizer or the 3 prizer on your board, like that's a win, I think. In
like literally all you
cases,
have to do is set up enough energy and damage on a Diancie that it doesn't matter if they run your Gardevoirs off the board. That's like literally all you have to do. So that feels really good. So yeah, the Diancie is great. What I've been kind of waffling on is, do I like the deck better with or without Jellicent? And that's part of the reason I played Jellicent specifically at the League Cup, is I wanted to try and like get a better sense of where my head's at with that stuff.
Yeah.
And so playing Jellicent, I wanted to get a sense of that, mostly because when you look at like the data and when you look at some of the top decks in the field, it really feels to me like some of the pros of Jellicent are really there. You know, the Gholdengo matchup probably being the big hill to stand on. And Gholdengo does get some new tricks. It has things like the Lopunny, for example, which are very efficient. But I find that just like you're still winning a lot of games versus decks like that with the heavy frillish strategy, especially if you manage to fit 2 Bravery Charms, which a lot of the Jellicent decks are doing now.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try that out in more detail. Obviously, it didn't work out for me at the Cup, but I don't think that's necessarily because I played Guardy Jellicent. And actually, I feel like I had potentially a better fighting chance into the matchups that I played with Guardy Jellicent than without Jellicent.
Sure.
So all said, like I'm still kind of like waffling between them, and maybe I pick some other deck at the end of the game here in Toronto. If I do that, I would love to do that like in the next week, so I could build up a similar repertoire of experience. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Guardy right now, to be honest. Like I wouldn't have played it for this long, for this many games, if I wasn't a fan of it. It just feels like your options are so wide and so powerful, and that your decisions are really meaningful every game. And I feel like I get to learn a lot as well when I'm playing it.
Yeah.
Of just the minor things too. Like sometimes I put damage down with Monkey Dory that I like end up regretting a couple turns later, and it felt fine in the moment. And sometimes it doesn't even matter, but like just being able to clock those things, I think is really satisfying. And as a very like cerebral player myself, like someone who really likes to like think through the game and like have nuanced game plans, I've never been a big fan of like the Gholdengos and the Raging Bolts where like the only element of skill is the sequencing. I really prefer this more strategic game plan style of decks. That's why back when like Buzzwole and Zoroark were both popular, I only ever played Zoroark. You know, like it's not that Buzzwole is brain dead or that Gholdengo's brain dead. I just prefer that like really think through how you're winning the game type of deck. So yeah, I enjoy the game. The game feel of Guardy is really fun to me. The array of options feels really strong to me. And like, I don't know if this is your experience, JW, but certainly like when I first got into Arceus a little while ago now, like every deck that I was freaking playing was dark. And just yesterday, even after I got back from my cup, like I played some TCG live because
to refresh.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna get my reps in somehow.
Yeah.
And I must have played like, I don't know, I played like 20 games before I took a break, and 18 of those, I'm not kidding, were dark type decks. And it's like, man, people are really out here hating, but it's like you still win like a lot of the time against those decks. It's just Guardy's so good, man. It's so good.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, I'm in a similar boat, right? Like I think we're kind of honing in on Guardy, or at least putting in our due diligence this far out, right? I never want to limit myself, especially more than a month away, to like I am playing this deck. I do want to circle the drain, obviously, as soon as I can to kind of narrow in. But at this point, Guardy is feeling, like you're saying, really strong. Feels like you have a lot of options. There's a lot of different ways to play it, and I think that's what I'm trying to decipher right now. I've concluded that Mega Diancie is just a good card, right? That was kind of step one for me, is like, what is this adding to the deck, if anything, and I think it adds a lot of, depth to the different attacking strategies and lines that you can take with Gardevoir. So I think going forward, no matter if it's jelly or non-jelly, that card is going to be in there. And then, yeah, I'm with you. It's like, do I play the straight version or do I play the Jellicent version? And why would I play one or the other? Because it seems like there's a lot of reasons to play the Jellicent version, and there's a lot of reasons to play the Jellicent version now. I have pulled up on the screen here. This is the Champions League Masters winning list from Snowsuke, who you may know as the finalist from Honolulu Worlds with their Roaring Moon deck. So winning the Champions League Aichi tournament this last weekend with their Gardevoir Jellicent deck. And so, yeah, right now I'm trying to figure out like what feels better. Like, is Jellicent just more of a, win more card? Like, should I be devoting those spaces to, if I were to play the straight Gardevoir version, just devoting the spaces to, TM Evos and just making sure that I'm getting Gardevoir up every turn with an attacker, right? What are the matchups that I really feel like I need Jellicent in? And I think the big one, and unfortunately it's going to be the most played deck in Toronto, is Gholdengo, right? It's like, that's kind of where that's the question I want to answer for this next week is, how can I beat Gholdengo consistently? Because I feel like in Toronto, I'll play against that deck the most, right? That's just going to be the deck. Maybe aside from Mirror or Dragapult, I'll just be playing a lot of Gholdengo. So I want to know, is that a matchup that I can realistically beat with the straight Gardevoir version, or do I need to be playing heavier Jellicent line to accommodate for that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, certainly if you just look at the numbers, from Limitless Labs, for example, and the numbers don't always tell the full story, right? I mean, there's a wide array of lists and players and skill levels and all sorts of things, even with like day 2 filters
and matchup comfort, right? And matchup comfort, right? Because
that's what I'm saying. Like just all these different variables. So like the stats don't tell the full story, but I think they at least paint a picture, right? So like Justin Stuttgart, for example, Gardevoir Jellicent was looking like even into Gholdengo, and straight Gardevoir was looking unfavorable. It's like a 40-60 just by those numbers. Maybe even a little less than that. And then when you aggregate a few more tournaments on top of that, because the meta didn't change like so drastically with Phantasmal Flames, you see like maybe Gardevoir Jellicent pulling a little bit further ahead in the matchup, and then straight Guardy still catching up maybe slightly, but still like not looking amazing. So I think when you put it all together, like the Gholdengo matchup is really the one that points most strongly to the Jellicent build. The Jellicent build is also good in the mirror.
Of course.
Honestly, the mirror is like the one matchup that you actually can justify putting the Jellicent card into play.
Well,
and not just
it's interesting. Yeah, because you do want to go Jellicent early, if you can, in the mirror. I think. I mean, again, I'm not a tier 1 NA Guardy player, but you are trying to go early Jellicent. Now, if you're playing against the straight Gardevoir version, they're probably playing a Screamtail, right? They're probably playing a Fluttermane, and so they can shut down that active ability.
I don't even think that's something you can guarantee, though. Like,
really?
I don't know. The lists are so variable.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe no one's really. I feel like Gardevoir Jellicent is really kind of down to those last 2 or 3 cards. Pretty much everyone's in your
like, if you look at the highest placing straight Guardy, the top 64 one, and Stuttgart, like they're not playing a Fluttermane.
Really interesting.
Or a bundle, like they're
interesting. I think they need
now,
one of those.
I think the Diancie is noticeably helpful in the matchup, but it's really hard to like juice your discard pile for it, or even get set up under the jelly. So like I think it's a little greedy for me to like only rely on the Diancie as like your one shot that at jelly angle. But if they play a card like Flutter or Bundle and are able to like get their setup juiced up, and like then the Jellicent becomes like a liability actually, because all it takes is a Diancie.
Yeah, the other card too would be something like a Turbo Energize, right? And we did see that from Stuttgart. There were some players that were playing the Turbo Energize to just, build a one prize board outside of the Diancie and just get that powered up as soon as possible. So that's another option.
The Turbo Energize is fine. I think the more I've played, like I've gotten more partial. I would maybe play the Turbo Energize as like a one-off in like a rare candy heavy build, like what you have on the screen right now.
Yeah, it's from Rune Harriman's top 16.
I think generally Evolution feels better to me of the two, between Energize and Evolution.
Yeah.
Like there are more games where I feel like I'd want Evolution in my hand than Energize. But if I'm not like really gunning for that Evolution setup anyway, like Rune's list here, then Energize is like a fine option, just to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting stuff. I think, if Andrew were on the cast, right, he'd be drooling out of the mouth, talking about Gardevoir. He is definitely on the Gholdengo hype train, without a doubt. And so let's talk a little bit about Gholdengo. I have the Stuttgart percentages here on the screen for Gholdengo with rocks, and there's not a lot to be concerned about. And I think that's very encouraging for a lot of players, and I think that's why it's going to be and has been the most played deck in a lot of these major tournaments, is that you're not really okay, Gardevoir Jellicent, like sure, but then you also kind of think about the average player playing each of those decks, right? The average Gardevoir Jellicent player probably just, more IQ points than the average Gholdengo player. No offense.
Yeah, especially on the podcast here.
I know. That is true. Yeah, exactly. Just look at who's leaning Gardevoir and who's leaning Gholdengo. But I mean, maybe Charizard, right? Charizard decks might be tough. The Noctowl certainly complicates things. It's maybe a bit of a speedier Charizard and can put on a little bit more early pressure. But by and large, like, you're looking at really strong matchups across the board, at least towards the meta decks.
Yeah, I mean, Gholdengo is the deck to beat right now, in my opinion. It's just so solid, and we've talked about this to death, so it feels like belaboring a point, but the addition of the Solrock Lunatone kind of opening up that clear one prize angle and that early turn one aggression has really kind of opened the door to this deck being successful in a way that it couldn't be like prior to that, when it was entirely reliant on like just swinging with Gholdengos pretty much, maybe with a gimmick like a scissor or something. Like the deck lacked the kind of necessary A, the one prizers in the first place, and B, the depth that comes with that to like really, really make a splash. It had some fine matchups, but like it was missing that like final piece of the puzzle, and the Lunatone Solrock engine, I think, is what really pushes it over the edge there and gives it that final piece, being able to trade those early one prizers and even trade one prizers for a lengthy duration of the game, potentially, like just boss around, for example, the threats and keep like hitting the evolving basics and the hoot hoots and all that sort of stuff. To me, that's like kind of the defining piece of the puzzle there for Gholdengo, and it is quite strong, right? It is quite strong. A lot of decks right now are trying to gun to beat Gholdengo, but I don't think many of them are succeeding. Like the Charizard, I think, is probably the most favored of like the big meta decks into Gholdengo. You have options like Chi-Yu, and just Charizard itself is a big threat once it starts swinging for one shots. Like, it's got a huge amount of HP. It kind of requires a
Yeah, you
most
force
likely
you force the
multiple
double
retrievals.
right. You force a double retrieval. I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, and that's not always easy to hit, especially off like an Iona 1, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So like Charizard to me is kind of like the most common, the deck that's both strongest into the field that is also good into
Mm-hmm.
Gholdengo.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like Gardevoir, for example, and Dragapult as well can kind of struggle into the matchup.
Yeah. Now, do you think Gholdengo is best with the Secret Box or best with the Prime Catcher? Because
I'm kind of partial to Prime Catcher because
I'm
I think
pretty
it leans
opinionated
into
on
what the
this.
deck does best.
Mm-hmm.
Like the deck, in my opinion, is at its strongest when you're just going super aggressive, going up like 2 prizes before your opponent's even set up, and then you just have to go like double dango on their 2 prizers to win. And I think Prime Catcher like contributes to that going successfully more often than Secret Box does, personally.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think that's exactly right. Like, if you play a Prime Catcher, then you essentially have 8 outs to a gust in those early turns when Soul Rock is most effective, right? The later the game goes on, the less efficiency Soul Rock has, the less efficient, the less, what am I trying to say? The less,
and it's like gusting is also like
potency
maybe a little bit more of a requirement early too, right? Whereas like in a lot of matchups in the late game, they're attacking with 2 prizers, right? So you kind of have the Gholdengo just swings in the active angle. Not always, but a lot of times. Plus, if they have 2 prizes on their bench, like you can now put Gholdengos into play to draw you more cards, for example.
Yeah.
But in that early game, like if they stick a Monkey Dory in the active, or they like leave a Mew in the active, or I have a very like Gardevoir brain clearly, but like put one of those like over 80 HP
or a Monkey
Pokemon
Dory
in
right?
the active.
Great.
Yeah, Monkey Dory is like kind of the most common one. Even like a Frillish if you don't have an Arven. Like now all of a sudden you're in kind of an awkward spot where like you're not putting on the aggression and you're giving them the turn that you were hoping they could avoid. Whereas the Prime Catcher turns that Arven into an out to potentially get that KO. Now, granted, you still have to hit the Solrock and the Lunatone. The benefit of the Secret Box is it kind of like fully sets up that whole shebang, like off an Arven. It makes you much more reliable at like the setup. But I also think like after those early turns, to me, Prime Catcher also is the card I would want to see.
Yeah.
Secret Box almost feels like insurance to me of like I'm going to just play my game more consistently.
Yeah.
But Prime Catcher feels like I'm going to have power turns, And I feel like this deck wants power turns. It's already very consistent.
Yeah, no doubt. So I think Andrew is pretty much locked into Gholdengo. It's a deck that I played to Vegas. I have no qualms about playing it again. And I think that, if we look at some of these, obviously we took a look at some of the top 8 lists, but there's still some innovation. I don't think that we've seen nearly as much hybridization or consensus on Gholdengo, right? We're talking about A-spec differences. There's a lot of different things that you can do with the Pokemon line. This is Owen Camerman's take on Gholdengo, and he's playing, the Mega Lopunny. He's playing the Hops Cramorant. Notably, isn't playing something like the Premium Power Pro or the Vitality Band, right? And so there's still maybe, more wiggle room, right? 5, 6, 7 cards in Gholdengo that players are swapping in and out. I've even heard players saying, yeah, I didn't really get a lot of use out of the Picnic Basket. And that might not be a card that we see, moving forward in the top performing lists. We have things like in this list from Owen, the TM Evolution, right? So being able to find your evolution Pokemon under item lock, or get out Gholdengo without having to play down Genesect, which is pretty relevant in a matchup like Dragapult, for instance. So there's still a bit of maneuverability with the card counts in the list, and I think that we should see more players gravitate toward, in my opinion, the Prime Catcher Lopunny list. Like, I think this is probably a starting point for a lot of players. I do really like the TM Evo. Again, we're talking a lot about Jellicent. I think a lot of good players are talking about Jellicent. A lot of bad players are talking about playing Jellicent as well. This just seems like a card to smooth out those early turns against that deck, and then the Lopunny into Jellicent. Again, I don't want to hyper focus on that matchup specifically, but that is a primary matchup for things like Cram, TM Evo, and Megalopony.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see like what kind of shows up over like the coming weeks in terms of Gholdengo builds. Like to me, compared to a deck like Dragapult Dusknoir, like it feels like Dragapult Dusknoir has kind of been solved more or less. Like most people are playing a very, very similar Dragapult Dusknoir list at this point. Whereas Gholdengo is like kind of all over the place. And to me, like I think that says kind of two things. Like first, it says kind of the base strength of the Gholdengo engine. Like you can play it all sorts. You don't have to get it exactly right. You can play it all these different ways, and it's fine.
Sure.
And then I think that also speaks to like the flexibility that comes with that, right? Because the base engine is so good, you can kind of like customize it to match the specific matchups you're looking to hit. So and those are good things. That's not ill on the deck. It's fine if there's not like an agreed upon 60. If anything, like that speaks to again how flexible the deck can be.
Totally, 100%. So, let's talk about the other two kind of big hitters of the format. I think those are Dragapult and Charizard. Dragapult is just the constant. Dragapult heads will tell you that they are favored into everything, just like Gardevoir players will tell you they're favored into everything, just like Gholdengo players will tell you they're favored into everything. But there's a lot to be said for Dragapult. I think it's in a great position right now to make a deep run and in Toronto or the upcoming majors. So talk to me a little bit about Dragapult and where you're at with it. Like, is it a deck you would consider? Kind of what are your thoughts heading into
Dragapult to me is another deck that's kind of high on my radar. Flashback a few months ago, like Dragapult was the top choice for me going into Milwaukee, like prior to us like figuring out about the Absol deck. And I don't regret my choice to play the Absol deck, but Dragapult was my line up until then.
Yeah.
To me, Dragapult has a couple things going for it. One, it's just like base solid. It's kind of solid into everything. It doesn't take like super polarizing matchups any which direction, and for most matchups. There's also some meta developments that I think play into Dragapult's favor, where it actually does like push the matchups to be a little more favorable. So if you have a deck that's like generally even with a couple like really solid matchups, that's generally a good sign. Some of those meta developments, Charizard, of course, like winning a tournament and winning Milwaukee as well.
And basically,
like, it's a deck
legitimizing a brand new engine for stage 2s. Sorry, just to go off on a tangent, or add that aside, right? Is like the stage 2 decks are really what Dragapult wants to see. Outside of Gardevoir, the stage 2 decks are what Dragapult is trying to feast on.
Right. Yeah. Dragapult bullies those decks, right? It absolutely bullies them. Charizard probably most of all, because Dragapult can really like manipulate the prize game, and unlike decks like Gardevoir, for example, like Charizard doesn't have an out to like one shot you if they're not allowed to do their thing. So like Dragapult has a lot of control in that matchup and can really kind of run that off the table. And you see that reflected like pretty definitively, in my opinion, in the stats for Dragapult against all variants of Charizard. The Gardevoir lists also, in my opinion, are very greedy into the matchup.
Yeah, super greedy.
And I think that's like probably an acceptable sacrifice for most players. Like they're willing to say like I'll dodge it, or like I'll beat it by Frillishing them, and they don't get fully set up in time. Right. Like Frillish versus Badoo, that's if you watch like Henry Child's deck profile, that's kind of what he says that he'll do in the matchup. Just like whatever. If I set up really stunted, like if I'm Frillishing them, like they'll be stunted too. I think generally they prefer the like super slow game to you as Guardy in those situations. But again, like Dragapult is liking that. It's liking that the Guardies are going to 2-1-2, you know, and not playing
no
Team Evos and stuff.
Yep.
And that's a matchup that can really heavily be influenced by the deck decisions of the Gardevoir players. You know, you can have your Gardevoir deck like basically 100-0 that matchup if you're like building towards that. But most Gardevoir players aren't really trying to do that. You know, there's a wider field than just Dragapults in it. So it's like in those developments. It's also like if Gholdengos are starting to get greedy and cutting things like picnic baskets, like it's just another thing that it kind of likes.
100%.
And its Gholdengo matchup isn't great, but like if Gholdengos start to make some of those sacrifices, like Dragapult can start to eke its way back in. And like some of the decks that it really doesn't like to see aren't very popular otherwise. You know, I think of the Mega Absol box is a deck that Dragapult really doesn't like to see. That's kind of been on the decline. It's been on the way out of the meta. I don't really expect that to change going into Toronto either. And really, like, what are you scared? What are you scared to play against as a Dragapult at that point? The Gardevoir lists are too greedy. The like Gholdengo lists are cutting picnic baskets. The Charizard decks are everywhere. You know, like you're looking at all these like solid matchups.
Yeah, and then you clean up the detritus, right? You just clean up all the random garbage.
You're a gatekeeper,
right? You are a gatekeeper, right? The Alakazams, the Joltik boxes, the you name it, right? Any Frostlass deck. I mean, it's just Garchomp, right? You're cleaning up all of these just random things, right? That you're gonna see over those first 5, 6, 7 rounds of a tournament. And so, yeah, there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like with Dragapult. Am I interested in playing it? Probably not. Although, it's one of those decks. Dragapult's one of those decks. Although I could say probably the same thing about Gholdengo, and I could say the same thing about Gardevoir, and I could probably say the same thing about Charizard. Just, again, kind of honing in on those 4 decks as being the elite of the format right now. Is that it would be a deck that if I don't play it to a major, I think if I look back in a year or 5 years, in hindsight, I'll be like, what was I thinking? Right? Because I've certainly had those, I've had those decks where I'm like, why did I like really try to make this work when I had a much better option available to me? And
what do you think of? What do you think of that?
I mean, there were always times like the Zoroark GX decks. There were times where I was like trying to make other things work, back in that time. I'm
sometimes I almost feel the opposite, where I feel like I forced Zoroark too hard when I should have accepted Buzzwole more.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. There, another one that I think of is Yveltal Garb. I did play that a substantial amount, but it wasn't like a deck that I mained. Like I was always trying to bring up, I don't know, like Donphan and Virizion Genesect and things like that, which are good decks in their own right. But again, I like look back at some of that time and I'm like, wow, Yveltal was just such a broken card, and like Gardevoir is just such a broken card, and like why didn't I just slam those together and just run every single tournament with one of those cards in my deck? Trying to think from recent memory, what would it be? I mean, it might just be Gardevoir, like from the last 2 years. Like I have played Gardevoir, but it hasn't been consistent. I played Gardevoir at Worlds one year. I played Gardevoir at NAIC one year, but it's just kind of been like smattering, right? Like pockets. It hasn't been this like consistent.
Yeah, I mean, Gardevoir, I think Gardevoir and Dragapult were those decks for me, which is why I'm like playing them so much now.
Oh, the big one. Oh, no, actually the big one that I do regret was Regidrago. I do, from recent memory. Like I should have just played the crap out of that deck after NAIC a couple years ago. Yeah, it's just like such a fun deck, a very interesting deck. I should have definitely just.
Yeah, I really like that deck a lot. I played that a lot online too. Yeah. At your request, mind you. I played that deck a lot.
I know. Decisions were made. Anyway, we were talking about Dragapult. Yes, very good deck. I mean, there's a lot of things to like. Talked about it a lot, but it's the one deck with a true draw engine. Right, a draw engine, right? We could maybe make an argument for
serious engine.
A what?
like a serious
Yeah,
engine,
like a
like it
consistent,
has
a
flow.
recurring draw engine, right? You make an argument for like the
Yeah.
Noctowl Charizard deck, right? And you have Pidgeot and you have Noctowl. Like, of course, that is an engine, um, but a draw engine, as you think of in kind of a classic sense, right? Where every turn you get to look at a few cards, and then you have just a broken attacker that spreads damage. You obviously can abuse the Dusknoir. I mean, it's just a
And you're the best deck at item locking.
and you have the best deck at item locking. Absolutely right. So yeah, there's just a ton to like, and I do wonder if I'll regret that in a year or two, looking back at this time period, because Dragapult, while it hasn't been like consistently winning, it's always consistently in the mix. It's always consistently in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, Dragapult to be felt favored to win Stuttgart by the time it made the finals.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, there were 3 in top 8, right? And there were no Gardevoir. And again, that's kind of picking, one example, but it's just always in the mix. You're always giving yourself a shot, and you're never out of a game, and yeah, yada yada yada. So let's go to our last deck, kind of as we're wrapping up here. That's Charizard Pidgeot. Our last, I don't know, I would argue tier 1 deck. Charizard Pidgeot / Noctowl, right? I think that's going to be the way moving forward. The 4 Dawn version with the Noctowl, the heavy Noctowl, and then the Pidgeot line. Like, I think that is just going to be the way to play Charizard, and I expect that to be the 3rd or 4th most played deck in Toronto, right? I think there's a lot to like about the deck. I think it's really fun. It plays in a very unique way, comparable to some of these other archetypes, and you have a consistency engine with the Noctowl in that early game, and then you follow it up with the Pidgeots in the late game. You can set up these really amazing board states that are pretty invincible starting from turn 3 or 4. Like, it's really impressive how fast you can get up, and then of course you can also abuse the Dusknoir line to really take control of your opponent's board. So I like the deck a lot. Again, is it a deck that I'm going to be playing in Toronto? Not likely, but I'm curious your thoughts on Charizard, Noctowl, Pidgeot as you've seen it.
I think the deck is like fine. Like I stand by. I saw this deck a ton on my like ladder grinding, and I was never very impressed by it. I don't know why. I feel like they're always having to burn like multiple Noctowls quickly, and like
Sure.
And then they're still like vulnerable to disruption late. So like I haven't been totally impressed by the deck, but like I think it is solid. I think Charizard is a deck that I think I wish I had a little bit more developed like hands-on experience with, because I think it is like an overall solid archetype. The big sell, of course, being like you got great lines in the Gardevoir and you have great lines in the Gholdengo. Those are like your 2 cells, and those are like great cells to have.
You just
also like depending on some of the builds, like Absol can be like pretty chill depending on the build. Just because you play very well off the board, you're not really worried about them hitting you and disrupting you.
Right.
And like, some of the other, like again, like kind of detritus type of decks, you can really kind of wipe clean with them as well. So, yeah, I mean, Charizard's a solid card. It just reads good. It's read good since the moment it was printed. It had a run as like the most dominant deck for quite a while as well. And to me, it doesn't feel like a favorite to win a tournament personally, but I think it's a solid choice. And I think I overall agree. I've come warm to the Noctowl being probably the right way to play it. It's just, I don't think it's for me. Like, I don't think I'll end up playing it myself.
Yeah. I feel that it is interesting though. It's, we talked last week about how the archetypes look, and it's just the deck that has, I mean, it's just such a unique looking list
with like the 20 some Pokemon.
Yeah, it's 27 Pokemon, 26 trainers, a lot of 4-ofs in the trainers, right? 4 Dawn, 4 Buddy Poffin, 4 Nestball, 4 Rare Candy, right? Like a lot of
I do love 4-ofs.
It's just a very unique deck in the current age of Pokemon. And so that to me is like, wow, that's really fun. Maybe I'll give it a look. It definitely feels like a deck that I want to build and have in paper for retro formats. Just again, how unique it is compared to what we've seen up to this point. For rare candy, again, that's kind of like my thing here is like any deck that has 4 rare candy, I'm like, what year is it? And so, yeah, just really interesting stuff. So I think this is going to be the 4th most played, right? In terms of Toronto, at least predictions from my point of view, and maybe you have a different thought on this, but Gholdengo seems to me the far and away top deck. You're getting a lot with the new set, the Phantasmal Flames release. You're getting a lot of answers to some of the harder matchups. I mean, notably just the easy attacking with the Lopunny into things like Gardevoir Jellicent, right? And then also into Cornerstone decks. That's like a 2-for-1 there.
I personally, I think you're overestimating how many people are going to include the Lopunny.
Okay, well, in any case, I think what I'm trying to say is that the most played deck is going to be Gholdengo. I think it's going to be in that 15 to 20%, and possibly more. Like I could even see Gholdengo being in that like 22 to 25%. But I feel comfortable saying, hedging my bets on that 15 to 20% being the most played deck. Number 2, it's probably got to be Dragapult, right? In that like 12 to 15%. And then you're looking at Gardevoir somewhere in that, 10 to 15%. With Jellicent being probably the more popular variant, probably about 10% just being the Jellicent build. And then I'd say Charizard brings it up beyond that. But we're really, we kind of outlined this last week, and I'm more convinced the more games that I play, both in person and on the ladder, that we're looking at a format that's crystallizing around those 4 decks. And if you don't have a good matchup into at least 2 of those, then there's really there's no reason to play what you're playing, because those 4 decks, again, from my experience right now, are what is shaping the meta.
I would broadly agree. Yeah, I think and I would agree with the order when you combine the variants of Gardy as well. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to see those 4 decks kind of running the tables. There's going to be other decks in the field. You see a lot of weird niche stuff. You still got like Terra/EV boxes out there. You still have like, I've been seeing a lot on ladder of like the Mega Kang Buffalant thing, which I do not respect that deck at all.
That deck sucks, dude.
I see a lot of people testing it out. I feel like it's like a ladder moment where it's like a fun deck to play online on the ladder.
Although
stakes.
I will say I've seen more than one person like post their League Cup winning list on X, and I'm like, how could that win? And then they say, oh yeah, my local meta is predominantly a Buffalant.
That's like Mega Lucario.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, literally that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Mega Lucario is a fraudulent deck, but I guess if your meta is all Kang, then you kind of wipe the floor with it for sure. Dude, the Kang deck is terrible. It's so bad.
Yeah.
The only times I've ever lost that deck is if they go for like a Hail Mary Gust and flip like 5 heads. Which sometimes they do that, but like, come on, that's not real.
I know. That's not real. Exactly.
Like, Ceruledge is like a kind of a deck, but like Gholdengo kind of does the thing better. In terms of like just aggressive KO anything style of deck. Yeah. I don't know. It does. I still think the format's quite good personally. Like it's a very interesting format to play. It's engaging to play, but I think it is centralized now across those couple decks. And there's the tier 2s and 3s that are out there too. And tier 2, 3 decks can win a tournament potentially, but I would tip my hat to those top 4 personally.
Yeah, they have really good combinations of consistency and power. The rocks, Lunatone Soul Rock, have been amazing for Gholdengo. That's very consistent, powerful deck. The Noctowl Charizard, that's always been a thing. But now we have Dawn to like more easily unlock Noctowls and just getting out stage 2s. So that's again consistency and power. Gardevoir maybe lacks a bit in that early game consistency, but it's, more of a lock style deck, right? Same with Dragapult, being able to item lock early while you're setting up these really aggressive and extreme late game boards. So it does feel like there's a really good mix of like very fast, aggressive, powerful decks and like late game comeback deck. I think the format is, like you're saying, in a really good place. It's been fun for me to play this deck, this format. I found a lot of joy in just grinding TCG live when I can.
Same, dude.
And I'm looking forward to Toronto. So with that said, we're going to cut this episode here. If you are on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe. If you're on a podcasting platform, please make sure to leave a comment for us. And that's going to do it for today's episode. If you want to get more plugged in with Tag Team, you can follow us on X at Tag Team Pokemon for the podcast, at Smiles with Riles for Riley, and at Real John Walter for myself.
Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.